This is Focus with Jack Caudill.
Good evening, I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome to this month's edition of Focus. This month we're talking about the OneHeart program here in Rapid City. Three guests with us to talk about that today. Charity Doyle, the OneHeart Executive Director, Chad Ratigan, the OneHeart Transformation Director, and Anita Deranleau. She is with the Mckinney-Vento program at Rapid City Area Schools. Now, OneHeart started as a project, a Rapid City collective impact initially. They began exploring a transformational campus concept back in 2017. Later that year, a location was picked, the old National American University campus on Kansas City Street. That came the process of coming up with the money for the project, transforming that campus, and that brings us to where we are today. We're going to start with Charity Doyle, the Executive Director. Thank you for joining us. I guess, first of all, can you give us, for people not familiar with OneHeart and what it is, kind of a quick explanation of what it is and what you're trying to accomplish there?
Absolutely. It's a place to stabilize lives and provide basic needs so that people can rebuild their lives and work themselves out of the crisis of poverty permanently.
Now, you've been on board with this program since 2017. What was the initial impetus? What was the initial idea that made people think this is something we've got to come up with?
Two things. One, the level of homelessness that we have in our community, and two, the level of poverty that we have in our community, and the revolving door in human services meeting some needs today, but not preventing people from needing those same things next week, next month, next year. So trying to end that revolving door. How could we create a different outcome and rebuild these lives and add to the workforce and really try to just literally change lives?
So what were the holes you were trying to fill? What were the holes that you guys found that you felt needed to be filled in this area?
When people are focusing on where they're going to sleep, or if they're sleeping in a place that's not safe for their family, or how they're going to feed their families, they lack the bandwidth and the energy to be able to think about their futures. They could have resources and pathways in front of them, but when you are working on just meeting basic needs and surviving, you just cannot see that path, even if it's right in front of your face. And so it's helping them mitigate those barriers so that they can now think about the future. And it's really incredible, Jack. We're seeing that the majority of the adults we have on the campus right now are now enrolled in either GED or higher education, because that's where they want to put their mental energy, but they just haven't had the capability or the opportunity to do that because they're so fixated and needing to focus on those survival needs.
How important is that to the concept of what you're trying to do to get people to that point where they can become self-sufficient, where they don't need the services that you guys have there?
Well, we know education creates opportunity, and we know opportunity and upward mobility is the key to breaking cycles of poverty. And so it's all related. If we can help people create that upward mobility, they're more self-sufficient in the community, they need fewer services, and they can break that cycle of particularly generational poverty for their entire families and change the trajectory of that family forever.
You know, we mentioned earlier, this started as a concept back in 2017. Mm-hmm. What has that process been like over this past 4 years to get you to the point where you're at right now?
Gosh, well, I know we've talked a lot over the last 4 years about the project itself and cultivating that. It's been incredibly time intensive. So many stakeholders had to come to the table to make this happen, and it's a lot to work with. It made it an amazing project, so don't get me wrong, just maybe later in the game than people would have maybe wanted to see. As far as being open on operational, that's a little bit different. We've been open since January 4th and are seeing some amazing things much earlier than we would have anticipated. Reason being is these are long-term plans typically, but we're starting to see some anecdotal evidence of just the reality of meeting basic needs and stabilizing lives. They can put that energy into moving forward, and they're moving forward in leaps and bounds. Many of them are quicker than we would have expected. So we have some very cautiously optimistic high hopes right now, and are just tracking the data to make sure we can work with them and produce those outcomes we want to see.
Are you learning more about the needs that are out there as you move into this and you open more and more of the facility there?
We kind of nailed it on the needs side. We did, and we built those pieces into the campus quite intentionally, knowing what the barriers were that people were facing out there. So that's one thing we absolutely did get right.
Now, you talked a minute ago about stakeholders, and you've talked about partners in all of this. Who are your stakeholders? Who are your partners, and how does all of that kind of mesh together there?
Well, we have hundreds of stakeholders. Of course, the big ones are our funders, our board of directors. The biggest ones are our partners. We have right now 11 partners on campus, a couple more to come. They're the ones who are helping us do all the hard work in rebuilding lives and doing it in a more collaborative and informed way. So that's been very good. But I really would say the entire community is a stakeholder in this. This campus is something that we have always believed would be an incredible community asset. Once you see the transformation of this 4-acre block in the middle of our community, I think people will agree. We've been able to raise some properties that were eyesores and blight within the community and are replacing it with a beautiful place for us. The social enterprise just got kicked off. That'll open to the public on May 3rd, which is a coffee shop that is open to the public, like I said. I think it's going to really be more than what people expected it. And it's been pretty impressive for the people who have come through.
Now you've just recently got the men's tower open, the women's tower open. What all is going to be down there when you finally get this whole thing completed and the vision is complete?
What all is going to be down there? Well, we have food being produced by the YMCA, 3 meals a day on campus in our commercial kitchen. We have childcare. We have some cultural amenities. We have a park that's coming in. We have multiple meeting spaces and offices and agencies headquartered on campus. Like I said, 11, soon to be 13 of them. And then within the towers, we have other amenities for people to just be able to acclimate more to living in a one-room situation with their entire family. And we're seeing some quite large families, larger than we had anticipated. So a place for the kids to be able to go and be kids, or teenagers to go and be teenagers, places for them to get on the computer, places for them to just watch TV or play games or socialize, with COVID protocols in place. And we're just really trying to help them feel part of a community, and we're seeing that happening. We're seeing the relationships being formed. We're seeing them relying upon one another and not just relying on OneHeart staff and partners. And I believe that that's happening because they feel so incredibly supported by this team, not just OneHeart staff, but this whole collaborative that they're working with. And it's really coming to life in a beautiful way.
Who is this program aimed at? Who is eligible to get into this? How do they get into this?
People struggling in the crisis of poverty that are referred to us by one of our partner agencies. So they're trained. In fact, Chad developed that program on what he's looking for and how people start to fill that pipeline. We just want to make sure that it's not just someone walking up saying, hey, I think this sounds good today. I want a place to crash, so I'll say whatever I need to say. The people who get referred to us have already proven that they're working towards rebuilding their lives and have shown that aptitude and that grit. And so we're taking that to the next level for them.
So for this to work, did they really have to be 100% on board? And
yes,
we're moving forward. We've got the same mindset that you guys have for this?
Absolutely.
And what kind of challenges have you faced along the way? It's got to be, over that 4 years, there's got to be a lot of hurdles that you got to overcome to get to this point.
I've seen a mix of things. Some challenges would be people wanting maybe to move too fast before they're actually stabilized and able to sustain that. So our care coordination team is watching out for that. Other challenges would be they're used to more structure in different places, and we're not it's not a prison camp, it's not a ton of structure and the freedom that it affords them. If they are challenged with making choices that maybe aren't conducive to their transformation plan, that's been a little bit of a challenge. But we're working through all those issues and helping them understand the goals that they've set for themselves and what's in it for them if they work through this hard spot and tap into their team and really ask for that help. That's another challenge I'm seeing for a population that typically doesn't know how to advocate for themselves, to learn that it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to not know the answers, and then instead tap into this collaborative that probably can help them find the answers.
If somebody wants to help you guys out, I'm sure there's ways to do that. How do they do that?
OneHeartRC.org.
Okay, sounds good. Charity Doyle, thank you for joining us. We'll continue our look at OneHeart when we return with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. This month we're talking about the OneHeart program here in Rapid City. Chad Ratigan with us now. Chad is the Transformation Director down at OneHeart. And Chad, you are in charge of the 3 care coordinators who work directly with the guests down there. How does that interaction work between your staff and the people when they first come in?
Well, it's actually a really smooth process. So the whole idea behind the transformation department was to make everything as easy as possible for the guests when they come in. When they come in to see us, a lot of them are in crisis mode or in crisis brain, right? So they really can't think past the end of the day. You know, how am I going to meet my needs? How am I going to keep my kids safe by the end of the day? So for us, it's really just making it as calm and easy as possible. So when they come in, they meet with their care coordinator. They go through the process of the sign up. And they kind of just explain what's going to happen, you know, how our campus works, what our expectations are. It's really just a calm environment. We have a room next to all of our offices across the hallway. If they have kids, because we do talk about some of the trauma that people have gone through. So instead of traumatizing the kids or re-traumatizing them, they're able to go into that playroom and hang out while we meet with their parents and go over, you know, what are their needs? What are their goals? One of the things that we ask them is, you know, if everything was perfect today, what would that look like for you? And a majority of them can't answer that. And the reason why we do that is as we progress along this journey with them on their journey, usually within a week or two, they can start thinking, you know, about the end of the next week. What do I want to do next week? Do I want to get a job? Do I want to fill out an application? And then eventually we're teaching them how to think further than, you know, the end of today, which is the whole goal, so that they can start to rebuild their lives and move forward.
How big of a step is it for somebody to come forward and ask for help and come forward to a place like this? How big of a jump is that for a lot of people?
It is a pretty huge step. Even to ask somebody just for help, you know, is a massive step. And then to have somebody come here and ask for help, hey, I need a place to live, I want to rebuild my life, I want to work on these things and make my future better for my kids, that can be daunting, right? So we try and make that environment as calm as possible so that they can ask those questions and they're not afraid to ask for help. And it's great to see the change when they first come in. Some of them are really quiet, kind of keeping themselves, and within a week, you know, they're open and they're sharing things that we never would have thought they would share with us, and they're asking for help. Hey, I'm struggling with this, I have a history of addiction, I'm struggling with this, can you guys help me? And to be able to have that communication really just shows that what we're trying to do is working. And we have our partners on there that we're able to send referrals to. If somebody needs assistance with mental health or addiction treatment, we're able to get those referrals out, and it's worked really well. So at the beginning, it's really nerve-wracking, and then within a week or so, they're asking for all kinds of help. So it's been great.
Now, Charity mentioned one of the goals is to get people out so they can be self-sufficient and on their own. How do you guys come up with a plan, an individual plan for a person or for a family that gets them going in the direction that they need to go?
So the unique thing about what we do is all of our plans are what we call person-centered plans, or PCP for short. And those are all based on that guest. What do they want to do? What does that look like for them? And how can we help them get there? So we don't necessarily have a plan per se that we want everybody to follow. Everybody's just so individualized. Nobody looks the same. We do put timelines on them and check in with them. They have to meet with their care coordinators at a minimum twice a month. So just checking in with them and saying, hey, where are you on finding a job? What can we do to help you with that? And then when they get to a point where they're, you know, accomplishing goals and they're reaching all these things, then we start talking about graduation. The biggest thing for us is that we know that trauma does have a huge impact in people's lives. So getting them to be able to work with that trauma, knowing what their triggers are, and kind of come to terms with that they've gone through trauma and they can move past it and have a successful, meaningful life for themselves and their children is a huge part of what we do. So those person-centered plans are very important, and they build them themselves, and we're just there to help course correct when we need to and celebrate their successes.
Now, this is obviously not a permanent program for somebody. From the time they come in, how long do they typically stay before they're ready to move out on their own?
Yeah, so just like the person-centered plans, it's going to vary. It just depends. So in order to be a part of the program, they have to be working on job, skill, or education. So if somebody wants to get their RN, you know, we know that takes 3+ years. So as long as they're following the rules, they're meeting with their care coordinators, they're continuing to work on the education, they can stay there for that amount of time. Then we'll help them find a job. You know, if somebody's just coming to get back on their feet and they accomplish their goals, you know, they may only be there for 6 months. So it really just varies on what that plan is and what that looks like and how quickly they work on it. Are
you seeing good results so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share a story with you. We had a guest get reunited with one of his kids, and I was meeting with them, and the first thing his son asked was, how much does this place cost? What's the rent? And for me, it's an odd question. You know, you're a teenager, why are you asking about rent? So I did tell him, I said, it's free. And he said, well, what about food? What do we have to pay? And I said, it's free also. And he just looked at his dad, and he got really teary-eyed, and he told his dad that he doesn't have to help him pay rent anymore. That was a part of their life, was he worked so that he can help pay rent and keep a roof over their head. And same with the food. And that is a commonality. You know, he's actually going to get a job, and he's excited about it because he can save his own money. So it's been great. We've had a lot of successes. We had another kiddo came in, and he was so excited about our washing room, about our laundry room. That was the most excited he'd been. He looked at his mom and he said, "I can wash my own clothes." He never had access to that. When he went to school, he was known kind of as a stinky kid because his clothes weren't always clean. So for him, that was the most exciting part. It wasn't the playground that we have there. It wasn't the youth lab or the teen lab where they have video games. It was the laundry room. And being able to hear those things and see those things every day, it's been amazing. It's been just a great experience, and to be able to create that kind of environment and watch people grow is close to my heart, and I love it. So.
Now, a lot of times in your background, you have mentioned, you've talked about that you have struggled and you've been through a lot of what some of these people are going through. Has that made you more empathetic to seeing their problems and their causes and their challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it made me more empathetic, but it just made me realize that it wasn't just me, right? So I grew up in my own world where I faced my struggles with poverty, watched my parents struggle with poverty and addiction. Ended up being adopted, and unfortunately I ended up being homeless again when I was an adult for about 3 months. And it just made me realize that there are more people out there, that are struggling, and to have that understanding and kind of put yourself in those shoes of, with the right amount of mentoring and the right programming, all these guests can be successful. They can all leave here and graduate. And we know it's not that easy, right? We talk about it in its words, but being able to put that work in and being able to accomplish those things and celebrate those successes with them, even if they're little, something as simple as filling out a job application, that's a huge step for them. So celebrating those little successes, build that foundation that we can grow on.
All right, Chad Ratigan, thank you for coming up. We're out of time in this segment. We'll continue our look at OneHeart when we return with this month's edition of Focus. And welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. This month we're talking about the OneHeart program here in Rapid City. Anita Deranleau is with the Mckinney-Vento program at Rapid City Area Schools. Thank you for coming up. I guess, first of all, people not familiar with it, what exactly is the Mckinney-Vento program?
So Mckinney-Vento provides services to students without homes. So we make sure that they have access to school and the ability to eliminate barriers to school.
So how does that work within the framework of the OneHeart program?
So I'm a partner at OneHeart, so I help refer students and families in, and then we make sure that they have access to school.
Now you work in the school system. Most people probably don't think a lot about homeless kids in school. How big of an issue is that? Do we know how many homeless students there are in the Rapid City district?
We have over 550 students so far this year. So it's a big issue for Rapid City schools.
Is it a lot more widespread, I think, than most people realize?
Yes. A lot of times people say, well, we don't have that in our school, but it's throughout Rapid City. We have homeless students identified in almost every school.
Now, when we talk about homeless students, are we talking about kids that are living in the car? Are they crashing on somebody's couch somewhere? I mean, what is that range of homelessness in the school district?
So it ranges from someone living with friends or family to living in their cars or absolutely couch surfing. We have students that do some couch surfing, yes. So it's anything in that realm of not having a fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residence.
What kind of challenges does that present for school and for education? I mean, there's got to be a wide range of things that makes that tough.
Well, like Chad said, we've got students that are assisting their parents in meeting those basic needs. And when you're trying to do that as a child or as a student, it's very, very difficult to focus on your education. A lot of times I have students come to me in the middle of the day and say, I don't know where we're going tonight. That's their concerns. It's the adult concerns that students have that we hope that they don't have to have, but they do quite often because of the issue of homelessness.
Is there a stigma that those kids carry with them?
They can, yes. Sometimes they feel like, they're all alone, feel like nobody cares about them, feel like other people are watching, that, they really do carry it on their soul.
How about just simple things that you would think about as far as it's winter, I need a coat, I need gloves, I need a hat, I need to brush my teeth. I mean, how does all of that add up into this big challenge?
It does. It really does. And that's part of what we supply is the McKinney-Vento program. We supply hats, coats, mittens, toothbrushes, toothpaste. And then when they come into OneHeart, we make sure that they bring all those things with them, that if they did, sometimes things get lost in transition, so we make sure that they have all those resources.
Now, when you look at education and you look at some of the challenges it makes, how important for breaking that cycle of poverty is getting that education? Because if they don't get that, does this cycle not then just repeat itself for another generation?
It very much does, yes. Yes, it will very much repeat itself unless they have some major win the lottery, That doesn't happen very often. So yes, the cycle can repeat, and we see generation after generation, especially when they haven't reached their high school diploma. That high school diploma is key to breaking that cycle of poverty, and gaining some additional skills is huge.
How's the partnership with OneHeart working? What has that led, and what results have you seen from that?
It is a great partnership. It's wonderful to be right there on campus because there's additional communication between OneHeart and then also the other partners that are in the building. I don't have to travel across town to visit with another partner. They're just down the hall. So it's very nice that the communication level has increased a lot for partners and for our communication with OneHeart.
How about for the kids? Has it made a difference that you've seen in the kids that there's maybe another layer of support for them?
Yes, it has. We part of the McKinney-Vento program, we often provide transportation to and from school. And we had some students that were telling me how to drive one day. And they said, we live at OneHeart, and the biggest smile on their face, And those two students wear their OneHeart badges into school because they're so proud of where they live. And that's unique. Most of our kids are trying to hide where they live, but our students at OneHeart are like overjoyed that they have such a wonderful place to be.
How big of a difference does that make? Just that emotional component of this,
that
they are finally proud of something.
Yes, it is huge then, because their self-esteem comes up, their desire to go to school comes up because, hey, I've got clean clothes today, and I know where I'll be tonight. I don't have those worries. So it makes a huge difference in their lives.
I know in the past your group has done drives collecting coats and hats and gloves. And are you still doing that? Or still ways people can reach out and help if they want to?
Always.
Okay.
We're always looking for hats, coats, mittens, those kinds of things. Yes, you can reach out through the schools.
All right. And how do they get a hold of you if they want to do that?
They can call my cell phone.
Okay, well, I don't know. Well, do we want to give that out?
Oh, we give it out all the time.
Okay. Okay.
They call 605-431-8414.
All right. We are out of time. Anita, thank you very much for coming up. Thank you to Chad Ratigan. Thank you to Charity Doyle. And again, thank you for joining us for this month's edition of Focus. Hope to see you again right here the first Sunday night of next month. Good night.